All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today, I am doing my Stephen King Ultimate Book Ranking. We are counting down 84 Stephen King books that I have read and reviewed on this channel. Now, if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you know in about 2020, I said I'm going to reread every Stephen King novel in order of publication, and I'm going to leave a review of that book on the channel. I have done that very task. It took me 3.5 years, I think, because we're 2023. I thought I could do it in a year. Took me 3.5 years to read every single Stephen King novel in order of publication, from Carrie all the way to Holly, and all of the things in between, and we are going to count them down in order of my least favorite to favorites. Keep in mind, Stephen King is my favorite novelist and writer of all time, so 90% of his books I love, so keep that in mind as we do this ranking. It's going to take us a while. 84 books. I'm not going to say much about each individual book. If you do want to, say, watch one of my more detailed reviews of any particular book that I hold up today, all you need to do is type in my last name into your YouTube search bar, the title of the book, whatever Stephen King book it is, The Shining, Salem's Lot, my name, title of the book, type it into your YouTube search bar, and I swear to you that video review will magically appear upon your television screen or your computer screen or even your phone. I'm not here to judge what you're watching the internet on. But anyway, let's get to it. Let's start counting down. 84. My least favorite to my favorite. Number 84. Cycle of the Werewolf. I don't like werewolves. I don't like Stephen King's shorter works as much as his longer works, and this is a shorter work. It goes in dead last. A close second to dead last was 83, Elevation. This was a recent short little novella that Stephen King came out with. I imagine this book will get absorbed into a much bigger compilation of short stories at some point, but right now it's a standalone. 83. It was all right. I mean, all right. Number 82 was the prequel to The Dark Tower, and this is The Wind Through the Keyhole. I didn't think it was necessary. I thought the Dark Tower story was fine the way it was. Do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't for me. Number 81 is a novel, a little short novel that came out not too long ago, within the last 10 years. Blaze. Not going to say much about that one. Now, I do have some of Stephen King's nonfiction titles in this list of 84. Coming in at number 80 was Dance Macabre. This is an early work by Stephen King, more or less essays on what he thinks of horror novels, horror movies, some of the stuff that inspired him as a writer, as a youngster. I kind of liked parts of it, kind of, skimmed through other parts. That's number 80. 79, and some of these picks are going to be controversial. Well, everybody's going to have an opinion of my list, and you can put your opinion in the comments if you'd like. But 70, Firestarter. I don't know why I read this a couple times. I could never quite get into it the way I really wanted to. Still a pretty decent Stephen King novel. In fact, everything from here on out is stuff that I pretty much enjoyed and liked. But I've got to rank them from least liked to most liked. Firestarter, number 79. Number 78, Thinner. It's just about a man on a diet. A fat man like me with a fat face just getting thinner. That's what the story is about. I mean, that's it. Eyes of the Dragon, 77. Stephen King's first attempt at like an epic fantasy. I read this when I was younger. It was all right. I've read it again as an adult, and I think that it's less all right than I did as a youngster. So 77. Another book of Stephen... Oh, it dropped on the floor and the camera fell. Oh. If any of you have watched my channels or any of my videos, we will edit all of that out. Okay, back together. Okay, all right. 76 is another book of essays called Secret Windows. Another sort of look at stuff that early Stephen King writing, some of the stuff he did in high school and stuff like that. Pretty decent. It's actually kind of interesting, and not a lot of people know about this book. All right, number 75 is the Stephen King collaboration with Peter Straub, and that is The Black House. Book number 2 in his Talisman series. Didn't get into this one as much as I did the first book, and it's not ranked that high on my list. Number 74, you're going to notice as I go through this list that a lot of Stephen King short story compilations are not going to finish very high on the list. I'm not a short story guy. I do, however, collect all the Stephen King short story collections, and I read them, and I've read them a lot. And some of the stories are dynamite, some, but I like his longer works. 74, Bazaar of Bad Dreams, one of his more recent collections of short stories. This one is going to be the most controversial ranking that I've got in this list of rankings, and that is The Shining, coming in at a woeful number 73. And I think that this is because when I was young, before I had read a handful of Stephen King books, but I'd also watched the movie The Shining with Jack Nicholson way before I read the book. And I think that kind of, I don't know, I really loved the movie. That's about all I can say about this, because we got to keep moving on, because we got like 72 more books to go through. Oh, Insomnia. I didn't fall asleep during this because it's about not falling asleep, so I tried to keep awake. It's a pretty decent book, though. I mean, it's for a mid-1990s Stephen King. It was all right. 71, The Sundog. The Sundog. Now, this was part of Stephen King's compilation of 4 short novels, 4 Past Midnight. And so you're going to see that I'm ranking all the books in the 4 Past Midnight. And so Sundog comes in at 71. Number 70 is The Cell. I did not, it was about a cell phone. It was about cell phones. That's like writing, well, Stephen King can turn even a cell phone into horror. I mean, he turned a machine that folded sheets into the mangler. The cell phones were evil, too. Everything's Eventual comes in at number 69. Yeah, man, we're not zooming through this at all. Another one of his sort of short story compilation books. Full Dark, No Stars, another one of his short story compilation books, comes in at 68. We've got The Girl That Loved Tom Gordon coming in at number 67. Kind of a cute little book. I like. Now, pretty much everything else I really do like, but they're just ranked. Coming in at 66 is The Skeleton Crew, and this is another one of his short story compilations. Like I said, they're not going to finish that high. Roadwork comes in at 65. This was part of his 4 Bachman books. I mean, he wrote some books under the last name Richard Bachman. No, the first and last name Richard Bachman. Richard being the first name, Bachman being last. But he called them the Bachman books. Roadwork was in that compilation. And by the way, this compilation is dynamite. I mean, it's just fantastic. But Roadwork was probably the weakest story in those, even though it was a pretty good story. We've got Finders Keepers. This is book number 2 in the Bill Hodges Mr. Mercedes trilogy. Decent trilogy. I did like the other books in the trilogy better than Finders Keepers. 64. 63 is the short novel by, what's the publisher here? Hard Case Crime, and that's The Colorado Kid. That was a good novel, a good little novel. Okay, this is another controversial one. People are going to hate that I did this, because Wizard and Glass is usually the most people's favorite Dark Tower book. It happened to be, other than Wind in the Keyhole, this one happened to be my least favorite. So it finishes 63. So you can crap on me in the comments for that. Apt Pupil. Now this is one of the short novels in his Different Seasons. Let's see, where's Different Seasons? Right here, Different Seasons. Different Seasons had 4 short novels. This was one of them. That was a good one. Let's see. I keep tossing some of the books on the ground that I actually need that I've ranked. Okay, The Talisman. Even book number 1 in the Talisman series by Stephen King and Peter Straub kind of finishes a wee low on the list. Night Shift 59, another one of his compilations of short stories. Nightmares and Dreamscapes, another compilation of short stories. Comes in at 58. 57, Rose Madder. That's a really good book. Now we're getting into some stuff that's really dynamite. And 57, it just goes to show you how much, just how large the Stephen King library is. Okay, 57. We got to keep moving. 4 Past Midnight. Actually, 55 and 56 are in here. And that's 4 Past Midnight. Secret Window, Secret Garden is one of the short novels in here. And then The Library Policeman is one of the short novels. And I did a review, I did an individual review on my channel of both of these books separately. So 54, The Dead Zone. 53 is Stephen King's first ever novel, Carrie, which is one of my favorite novels of all time. And it's coming in at number 53. That's crazy. The Gunslinger. The Gunslinger. Another controversial pick. Pardon the drink. By the way, sponsored by Dr. Pepper. The Gunslinger. Would have thought this would have finished higher, but there's like 51 other novels I like better. Which 51 is Dolores Claiborne. I love that. The Tommyknockers. I've always said this was one of my favorite Stephen Kings, and it only ranks 50th. Holy crap. 49 is another book out of the 4 Past Midnight compilation, and this is The Langoliers, about a really strange plane trip. Now, coming in at 48 and 47 are the Gwyndy Button Box books, which I actually liked more than I thought I would. And then The Mist. The Mist is a great little short novel, and probably one of Stephen King's best movie adaptations was The Mist. Okay, we got to keep moving. Fairy Tale, one of his newest ones. His up next, after Eyes of the Dragon, this is his next foray into high fantasy. If It Bleeds comes in at 44. 43 is another hard case crime, and that is Later. I really dug that one too. And Duma Key. Duma Key comes in at 42. That's pretty cool. The Institute, the one I just reviewed not long ago, 41. And I really liked this book. There's 40 more that I like better. The Wastelands, book number 3 in the Dark Tower series, comes in there. Joyland is number 39. Another hard case crime book there. From a Buick 8. I love Stephen King and evil cars, and From a Buick 8 comes in at 38. Oh, speaking of Stephen King and evil cars, The Regulators comes in at 37. That's about a lot of evil cars there. Dreamcatcher. 36, Dreamcatcher. When this one came out, I really anticipated the release of that, and it did not disappoint. The Running Man. This is also part of Stephen King's compilation, the Bachman books. But it is a great, intense story that I read in one sitting. Same with The Body. The Body is part of a Different Seasons compilation. And The Body was actually made into the movie Stand By Me, for those of you. And then Gerald's Game, about handcuffs and things like that, kinky things like that. Gerald's Game, that was a good one. Probably, and Misery. I mean, I am Stephen King's number one fan. Number one fan. I mean, I like the guy quite a bit. I'm not going to kidnap him and hobble his legs or anything like that. But this book was dope. As was Kathy Bates' portrayal of the evil person. Christine, Stephen King and Evil Cars. This is a great book. I read this when I was a kid, related to it quite heavily. All right, we're getting down to the top 30, and Dr. Sleep. People are going to be like, how the can you rate Dr. Sleep above The Shining? I just liked it better. And the movie was cool too. Just After Sunset, another collection of short stories that I actually quite liked these. There were some stories in this one that I quite liked. That's why it finished higher than some of the other short stories. Billy Summers, one of the newer Stephen King novels, comes in at number 28. I know that I put these numbers here so I could remember what number, but I'm probably not even remembering to say the right number. 27, Revival, one of his newer books. I like a lot of his newer stuff, believe it or not. And his newest one, Holly, which I reviewed about a week ago, comes in at number 26. I really enjoyed that one. And then we've got End of Watch. This is book number 3 in the Bill Hodges trilogy. Coming in at number 25, and then coming in at number 24 is Mr. Mercedes, book number 1 in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I actually quite enjoyed that trilogy a lot. Books 1 and 3 the most. And then we've got The Song of Susanna. This is book number 6 in the Dark Tower series at 23. God, what the... I'm glad that I put these numbers, because I think I've been saying the wrong number with every book I've held up. So, Wolves of the Kala, book number 5, Wolves of the Song of Susanna, they're 5 and 6 of the Dark. They're coming in at 23 and 22. And then Lisey's story is number 21. I think this is one of Stephen King's favorites, and it's also almost made my top 21. Now the top 20, now we're getting into the stuff that I really, really dig. These are all like 10 out of 10 stars for me, and that's Dark Half. That's a cool book about some murders and stuff. And then Hearts in Atlantis at number 19. Gosh, this book is like literary brilliance, and it's number 19 on the list. It should be higher, but there's other books that are better. One of which is The Drawing of the Three, book number 2 in the Dark Tower series, which this is the book that sold me on because The Gunslinger, if you noticed, it finished not that high on the list. This one, oh my God. This is the one that sold me on the Dark Tower. This is what made me fall in love with the Dark Tower, is this book number 2, The Drawing of the Three. It is killer. And it's number 14. Number 15 is Under the Dome. I liked Under the Dome. I like his big epic books, and Under the Dome was just a great book filled with numerous great characters. Number 16. What was that one? Number 15. How is this going backwards? We will do this another way, because I've got these all stacked up all backwards and all sideways and shit. Because we're going to have to backtrack. Because we got number 18 and 17 and 16 up here in the wrong order. I stacked them in the wrong order. That's what I'll edit all this stuff out too. But anyway, let's see. Okay, so 15 snuck in somehow. But number 18 was Sleeping Beauties. Everybody's going to hate me for that. I liked this novel, specifically because I spent a lot of time working in a prison, and this is about prison stuff. And I like Stephen King stories about prisons. And Sleeping Beauties with Stephen King and Owen King, I liked it. I know I'm going to get crap for that, but you can give me crap if I understand. That's 18. 17 is The Outsider. This one I listened to on a long drive from Salt Lake City to Phoenix, and I dug it. I mean, this is one of the first ever Audible.com books that I ever listened to. Great. Then number 16, Bag of Bones. And then number 15 was what? Under the Dome. But I already showed you that one. Out of order. Number 13, Salem's Lot. The very, very, very first Stephen King novel I ever read. The best vampire book on the planet, despite the fact that I'm Team Edward. I still think these are the best vampires on the planet. And one of my favorite endings to a Stephen King story. So there's that. And then we've got Pet Sematary coming in at number 12. Again, I love his monster. Like, you're going to find out that a lot of his monsters, like evil cars and evil animals, finish high on my list. Like Cujo. Cujo is like Jaws. It's like not a supernatural thing. It's just an evil dog. Like Jaws was an evil shark. I think you got, The Dark Tower, the final book in the Dark Tower, comes in at number 10. We're to the top 10. Top 10. I loved the way that this series ended. I loved the final book. I anticipated it for a long, long time, and it did not disappoint me. I know a lot of you are going to take exception to this choice also. That's fine. That's fine. And then we got Desperation. I like this one because I grew up in the deserts of southern Utah, and this book was set in the deserts of Nevada, and they're very similar. I really liked it. I thought it was spot on with this depiction of horror in the desert. Number 8, Needful Things. Needful Things is such a great novel. It's like the quintessential novel, and this is the quintessential Stephen King cover. I dig everything about Needful Things and this packaging of this whole book and everything. It is great. We're to the top 7. And I don't have I'm just going to show you the shirt of the Shawshank Prison. The Shawshank Redemption is the 7th best Stephen King novel ever, and it is also part of his different seasons compilation of 4 books. But I just got the shirt. I don't have an actual copy of the book. I did have a copy of the book once, but it escaped. I mean, it escaped me. So, I mean, you get it. I mean, prison break, escape. Anyway, number 7, Shawshank Redemption. We are down to the top 6, and this is where the books get absolutely magical and mean a lot to me. So let's get down to it. Book number 6 is On Writing by Stephen King, his book on how to be a good writer, the writing craft. One of the books that inspired me to write my own novels like The Forgetting Moon. The Green Mile, like I told you, I like prison stories, and especially the ones that Stephen King did. Green Mile, this is the book that I recommend. If people don't ever read Stephen King and they want to start, I say start with The Green Mile. It's a great entry into the Stephen King universe and his style of writing. The Long Walk. The Long Walk. This is part of the Bachman books. Again, those books that he wrote under the name Bachman. The Long Walk was just an absolutely delightful, surprising story. It comes in at number 4 for me. One of the most unique stories Stephen King ever did. Number 3 is 11/22/63. The perfect novel, in my opinion, with the perfect ending, the perfect beginning, the perfect middle, and all the characters and everything about it was just perfect. I delighted in everything about 11/22/63. Time travel back to, make sure that President Kennedy does not get shot. It. Number 2 is It. Oh my gosh. Books just don't come any better than this. Well, one of them does. And we'll get to that one in a second. But It is my number 2 favorite Stephen King novel. I love every word of this book. But not quite as much as I love every word of The Stand, which is my favorite Stephen King novel and my favorite novel of all time. This is my favorite writer of all time, my favorite Stephen King novel, and my favorite novel of all time. I love the huge, massive, unabridged version. I've got a lot of different editions of this book, and it just is everything I love about writing, character, adventure, and horror, all rolled into one. And so that is my 84 rankings. And let's look at this. I mean, we'll pan through my library here, but we'll end up looking at the pile of books that I just left on the... I mean, that's... Only professionalism from me, folks. Only professionalism.